It was a cold, gray morning in London, the kind where the sky feels too heavy to cry, but too sad to smile. The crowd outside Buckingham Palace moved in quiet waves, tourists taking selfies, school children on field trips, couples wrapped in scarves, pointing up at the grand golden gates. And then there was Liam, 13 years old, shoes 2 sizes too small, a borrowed jacket too thin for the wind, and in his hands, an old, scratched up guitar and a folded piece of paper, nearly torn in half at the edges. He wasn't there to beg. He wasn't there for photos. He was there for one reason: to be seen. Every morning for the last 2 weeks, Liam and his 6-year-old sister Ellie had woken up behind a shuttered gift shop just 2 blocks away. Cardboard for a bed, a broken umbrella as a roof, no parents, no help, just each other. And every morning, Liam would walk Ellie to the nearest shelter, where they offered breakfast to kids. "Wait for me," he'd whisper, brushing her tangled hair back. "I'm going to fix this." That morning, he sat across from the gates of Buckingham Palace, not for tourists, not for the Queen, but because people look at things here. He placed the folded paper on the pavement in front of him, unfolded it carefully. In messy pencil strokes, "My name is Liam. I wrote a song for my sister. She says it makes her feel safe." And just beneath it, taped to the paper, with hope and a prayer, were 5 words: "Please listen, even just once." Then he closed his eyes, lifted the guitar, and played. His fingers weren't perfect. His rhythm sometimes stumbled, but his voice, cracked and small, told a truth no one could ignore. "I wrote this song for the nights she cries, when the stars forget to shine. I promise her things will be all right, even when I know they won't." People passed, phones out, eyes down. A few glanced. One man took a photo. Another shook his head and muttered, "Where are his parents?" A tourist snapped a picture, then dropped a single-pound coin. But no one stopped. Until a man in a hoodie, sunglasses low on his nose, paused mid-step. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He just stared at the boy, at the guitar, at the trembling fingers holding on for dear life to that last chord. And then the man did something no one else had done all day. He sat down, right there on the pavement, next to Liam. Liam opened one eye, startled. The man smiled gently, then said, in the calmest, softest voice, "Mind if I sing the next verse?" The boy froze. That voice, that face now half revealed, it was Ed Sheeran. And what happened next would shake Buckingham Palace to its core, and the internet even more. Ed looked at him and said the kindest words Liam had ever heard. It always mattered. People just forgot how to listen. Then he stood up, took off his hoodie, and placed it gently around Liam's shoulders. "I'm not letting this moment disappear," Ed said, now turning to the crowd. "This boy, this song, it's real, it's raw, and it deserves to be heard by the world." Liam blinked, unsure what he meant. Then Ed pulled out his phone, pressed record, and pointed the camera at the boy. "All right, mate," He smiled. Let's show them what a real street performance sounds like. And together, just a man and a boy with nothing left to lose, they started again. But this time, the world was listening. Liam could barely feel his fingers, not from the cold, but from the weight of what was happening. He and Ed Sheeran singing his song in front of Buckingham Palace. The crowd had grown from a quiet cluster into a small ocean. Tourists had forgotten their cameras. Locals had stopped their morning rush. Children sat cross-legged on the pavement. Even the palace guards, usually stone-faced and still, were stealing glances behind the gates. And at the center of it all, a 13-year-old boy with worn shoes, a cracked guitar, and a voice that had only ever known silence. I'd trade the stars for one warm room, a laugh, a light, a lullaby, just to see her smile again, just to know she'll sleep tonight. The last chord rang out. Silence. Then a wave of applause, louder, longer than Liam had ever imagined possible. Some clapped with joy, others wiped tears. A few simply stood still, stunned by the rawness they'd just witnessed. Ed turned to Liam, smiling proudly. Mate, you just broke the internet. Liam blinked. What? Ed held up his phone. This video's already been reposted by 2 influencers, and my manager's texting me nonstop. I give it 20 minutes before you're on every screen in the country. He wasn't wrong. By the time Liam walked back to the shelter that evening, still wearing Ed's hoodie, his face was everywhere. On Instagram Reels, on TikTok, on news sites with headlines like, Ed Sheeran joins homeless boy in surprise duet. The song will break your heart. A voice from the streets. The 13-year-old whose lyrics moved a nation. Buckingham Ballad, Struggling Boy, and Superstar unite in unforgettable moment. And then came the comments, tens of thousands of them. I cried watching this. This is why I believe in humanity again. I want to adopt this kid. Where's his family? Ed Sheeran, you're a real one. Thank you for seeing him. But Liam didn't care about viral fame. He didn't even know what going viral meant. All he cared about was Ellie. He burst through the shelter door, breathless. Ellie! Ellie! It happened! She looked up from her coloring book, eyes wide. You sold the song. No. He grinned, dropping to his knees. I sang it, with Ed Sheeran. Her eyes filled with wonder. Is he nice? Liam nodded. He called me brave, said the song was real. And for the first time in months, Ellie laughed. That high, tinkling laugh Liam had thought was gone forever. He didn't know it yet, but that laugh would soon echo far beyond the shelter walls. Because the video didn't just go viral. It was about to change everything. Liam had never seen a phone ring so much in his life. Actually, he didn't even have a phone, but the shelter staff did. And by the next morning, it wouldn't stop buzzing. Journalists, TV producers, charity organizations, a woman from the Ellen Show, and something about Good Morning Britain. They all wanted to speak to the boy with the song. And Ed, he wasn't done yet. That very afternoon, a black car pulled up in front of the shelter. Liam watched through the window, heart pounding. Ed stepped out with the same relaxed smile, holding something in his hands. Two things, actually. One, a brand new guitar case. Two, a simple white envelope. "Hey, champ," he said, kneeling down. "You busy?" Liam shook his head slowly. "Good, because we've got work to do." He handed over the guitar, a deep brown acoustic with Liam's name etched into the neck. "I talked to my team," Ed continued. "We're going to re-record your song properly. Studio, microphones, the works. I want the world to hear it exactly the way you wrote it. Every crack in your voice, every ounce of heart." Liam's hands trembled as he opened the envelope. Inside, a single piece of paper, a handwritten contract, artist name, Liam Carter. Song title, Lullaby for Ellie. Co-produced by Ed Sheeran. His eyes went wide. I don't know what to say." Ed grinned. "Say you'll keep writing." That night, Liam stood in a real recording studio for the first time. The glass walls, the glowing buttons, the soft hum of headphones pressed against his ears. It all felt like a dream. But when he sang that first line, something clicked. His voice wasn't just sound anymore. It was proof that he mattered, that even a kid with nothing could still move something. By the time they finished recording, the team around Ed was in tears. One of the producers, who'd worked with Adele and Sam Smith, whispered, "This song, it's going to destroy people in the best way." But back in the shelter, Ellie didn't care about Grammy talk or viral numbers. She just hit play on the final mix, curled up under her blanket, and whispered, "Sing it again, Liam." And he did. That night, for the first time in months, she slept through till morning. Because the lullaby wasn't just for her anymore. It was for everyone who had ever felt invisible. And soon, they'd all be listening. The morning after the song's release, Buckingham Palace didn't look the same. What had once been a place Liam sat, ignored outside, was now the center of a movement. Hundreds of people gathered around the gates, not for royalty, not for tradition, but for him. Some held signs that read, "We believe in Liam." Others brought their own guitars, playing covers of Lullaby for Ellie. A group of school children sang the chorus together in shaky voices while their teacher wiped away tears. And at the very front, holding Ellie's hand, stood Liam, now in clean clothes, holding the guitar Ed had given him, his eyes wide with disbelief. Ed leaned over and whispered, "Remember how you said you just wanted someone to listen?" Liam nodded slowly. Ed smiled. "Well, now the whole world's singing your words." The song had exploded. #1 on YouTube trending. Top 10 on Spotify in 5 countries. Articles in Rolling Stone, The Guardian, even Time magazine. But the most beautiful thing? The comments. Not the ones praising Ed, not the flashy headlines, the stories. I played this for my daughter in the hospital. She hasn't smiled in weeks. Today, she asked for a guitar. I was homeless in 2015. This song took me back, but it gave me hope. This kid wrote what I couldn't say. I lost my brother last year. I needed this more than I knew. Donations poured in from across the globe, enough to house Liam and Ellie permanently, 10 times over. But instead of accepting all the money for himself, Liam did something no one expected. He asked Ed, "Can we help more kids like me? Ones who don't have a song yet?" Together, they launched the Lullaby Foundation, a charity providing musical instruments, safe housing, and therapy through songwriting to homeless and struggling youth. The very next day, BBC aired a live segment from the gates of Buckingham Palace. A simple stage, a single chair, and Liam. He didn't speak much. He didn't need to. He just sat down, looked at the crowd, and sang, "I promise her things will be all right, even when I know they won't." And the audience, young and old, rich and poor, sang it with him. Because this wasn't just a song anymore. It was a voice. One that would never be ignored again. It had been 3 weeks since the song broke the internet. Liam was no longer sleeping behind shops. He wasn't strumming a cracked guitar in the cold. He and Ellie now lived in a small, cozy flat in London, a warm place filled with books, laughter, and framed photos of that unforgettable day outside the palace gates. But something had been on Liam's mind. One thing he never thought he'd do. One place he never thought he'd enter. Until now. A formal letter had arrived with a golden seal, and a signature so perfect it barely looked handwritten. It read, "Mr. Liam Carter, the royal household has been deeply moved by your story and your song. Her Majesty wishes to meet you personally. A private audience has been arranged. Please come to Buckingham Palace this Friday at 2 p.m. Liam stared at it for hours, not because of fear, but because of how impossible it once seemed. He had once been pushed away from those gates. Now he was invited in. And when Friday came, Liam wore his cleanest jeans, his favorite hoodie, and carried the guitar. Not the new one Ed gave him, but the old one. The one his dad left behind. The one that survived every cold night and hopeless morning. Ellie squeezed his hand the whole ride there. As they stepped inside the palace, past the very guards who once ignored him, Liam felt something he hadn't in years. He belonged. The Queen's assistant led them into a quiet, sunlit room. Not grand, not gold, just peaceful. Moments later, Her Majesty entered, her steps graceful, her smile soft. "I listened to your song," she said warmly, offering her hand, "and I must say, it moved me deeply." Liam's voice barely worked. "Thank you, ma'am." "I've heard many voices over the years," she continued, "but yours reminded me that even the smallest ones can carry the loudest truths." Then she handed him a letter, sealed, handwritten. "For Ellie, when she's older," a reminder that her brother gave her more than a lullaby. He gave her a future. ER. As they left the palace, Ellie held the letter like treasure. And Liam, he didn't say much. But that night, back home, with a warm meal on the table, and Ellie asleep beside him, he sat by the window. The city lights twinkled below. He opened a notebook and began writing again. Not because he needed to be seen, but because someone, somewhere out there, still hadn't been heard, and he was ready to listen now to the end of the beginning.